Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. It's chaos in the COD scene today. Nero coming at Slack's neck. The whole COD community jumping on the bandwagon of this absolute crazy drama hitting the timeline today. But also, roster developments this afternoon. Gentlemates, it seems, have a roster not only in mind, but preliminary contracts have been signed to keep these guys under lock and key. And it's different to what we thought the roster was going to be. This might put teams, especially the Falcons, in a very tricky position trying to round out their roster this period. Very much enjoyed your thoughts on a comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. We're going to start with Black Ops 7 because there's quite a lot happening there right now. We're going to see the reveal within about a week or so. Ghosty says that the current build of the game has no tac sprint. We talked about this yesterday, but this does not appear to be like a test version of the game. This is the actual version. The final decision apparently is there will be no tactical sprint in the new title. Simp's very happy about it. You might look at recent CODs and say, well, in the games where there was no tactical sprint, Simp was just that guy. Whether that logic really works and justifies Simp being the best player in the game, again, who knows? But time might well tell on that one. And Simp, well, what he said the other day, I'm him, don't worry about FaZe. Maybe this will give him some more confidence on that front. Apparently, doors are not going to be in the game. This is good news, I think, to pretty much everyone who likes competitive COD. Doors are gone. Now, doors may be in the game in the same way that, for example, Arsenal on Black Ops 4 had doors, but they were sliding doors that when you could see through them, but if you walk up to them, they just open sesame, right? Now, obviously in COD over the last few years, they've moved away from that to some degree, but apparently there are going to be no doors in the regular game. You don't have to bash them down. You don't have to interact with them. I think that's good news. There's also rumours on the maps. The maps were the big issue with Black Ops 6. Rumour has it they're going to be colourful, certainly more colourful than a Black Ops 6 maps, somewhere closer to Cold War in that regard, and we are going to have 3 Black Ops 2 maps. Now, I'm hoping we get more other maps, like, BF4 maps, Return or whatever. There was a rumour that it was going to be like the full suite of Black Ops 2 maps, which I wouldn't have minded just because so much nostalgia playing something like Drone or, I don't know, Overflow, Turbine, maps that people don't really have high in their list in COD history, but I still enjoy playing them. But they're just going to bring a handful back. Reports have it, well, Ghost of Hope says, these are the 3 maps. Raid will be back, as it should be. Express will be back. Very solid search and destroy map. We saw it come back in Cold War. I'd like to see that back in the rotation. And then Hijacked. I think Hijacked, respectfully, is one of the more overrated maps. I know that it's generally well liked, but it is just Nuketown, but with an underground section and just not quite as good. So, it is what it is, whatever. Hijacked, fun map. I'm not going to complain exactly, but I'm not expecting that to be in the competitive rotation. There were also rumours about specialists returning. We'll discuss it in more detail, I'm sure, over the coming days. Let's talk about this Nero drama, because this I found hilarious. Now, I know he was getting instigated a bit in the chat here to say this, but he did say it with his chest about Slacked and other pros. So he's talking about Warzone players, whether they could compete against CDL players. Nero, of course, is known for being a cracked player, clearly talented, but in his career, obviously hasn't achieved all that much. He's made a couple of Sundays, but nothing really more than that. And this year on Rocker wasn't going to plan. Of course, we know what Kenny had to say on his teammates. He didn't address them specifically, but Kenny was like, well, I don't mind teaming with younger players, but they don't really try and win. They're just playing for their spot. So, guess who we might have been discussing there, given that we now think Kenny's going back to the LA Thieves. But Nero was talking about slacked and apathy. The funny thing about this clip is that he gives credit to Blastful, who, look, I think Blast is a talented player, but if you're talking about failed COD pros, you can't argue that slacked and apathy fall into that category if Blastful doesn't.
I don't think Warzone pros can compete with CDL players. I do not think so, no. I don't even think it's close, to be honest. Half the Warzone players are failed, COD kids that tried to make it and they didn't. What I would say made it was Rasim, and he's actually good. But the others, they're literally failed COD, try to go COD. Slacked was a pro. He was awful. Fucking Apathy was a pro. He was good, but then he retired, obviously, because, he wasn't his prime, and he was getting Kentucky fried. Blast is actually good. I tip Blast. Only thing he was known for was the Slack Sam and BO4, bro. Slacked was a pro. He was awful. Fucking Apathy was a pro. He was good, but then he retired, obviously, because, he wasn't his prime, and he was getting Kentucky fried. Blast is actually good. I tip Blast. Only thing he was known for was the
Bro, he literally said
COD kids that tried to make
the Warzone players are failed COD kids. Then he says Blastful.
They're literally failed COD, try to go COD. Slacked was a pro. He was awful.
Slacked was a pro. He was awful.
Fucking
I mean, what the fuck? Nero woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Why is he cooking these guys like this? Yo, what the fuck?
Thoughts on Nero calling me awful? Oh, yeah, he's mad because I made a video, like, I don't remember how long ago, where I did a tier list and I put Nero in, like, F tier. So I think he's still mad about it. I lived in his head rent-free for, like, 4 or 5 years whenever I made that video. Lived in his head for this long. It's quite impressive, bro. I don't think I've thought about that guy since I made the video. But he sure has thought of me. Holy.
Yes, killed your boy.
As long as he knows I was trolling. And app, obviously, like, as long as they know that I was trolling, I don't really care. Because obviously, like, I don't want beef with anyone. They obviously won. That they were dog shit at the end of their career. At least for, like, Cold War. But obviously, everyone knows that. I just don't think they were in the right mindset for that. But they were good in the other parts of their career. They won. They won. Obviously, they had to be good. They just took that shit out of context.
Well played, Octane, by the way, instigating this. He went into Slack's chat to ask him the question, and Slack gives his response, which I found incredibly entertaining. Now, what this is coming from is this. This is a tier list that Slack did back in April of 2022. So this is midway through the Vanguard season, as you can tell by the pictures here. We've got, you know, the Vanguard LA Gorillas roster. We've got Dave Paddy on here. Trey Zero still competing, as is Scump, as we can see. We've got all the old photos with the terrible lighting that the CDL used to use. Donnie Temp's still around. We've got Gizmo, of course, from that season on the Ravens. You know, I might have mentioned Dave Paddy, but I'll say it again anyway. Kremp is still here, right? You know, Kremp gets put in the D tier. No, look, very controversial list at the time for sure, but if you look at the F tier, you'll find Neptune, who certainly isn't an F tier player today. You'll find Gravity. You find Bance, Jimbo, Priester, you know, F tier without the hacks. And then we've got Nero, of course, on the right-hand side. So this is what Slacked is saying, that ever since this tier list, as controversial as it was, he put Nero in the F tier, and 3.5 years later, Nero has not forgotten and is covered in his neck. So Slack thought this was a great opportunity to fire back and do some impression farming. I thought it was funny because on paper, you'd think this is a pretty minor beef, right? You know, current CDL Pro beefing former CDL Pro. Really, Slacked was a CWL Pro, right? He didn't do his best work in the 2020 season before he called it a day in the sport. And yeah, fair enough. Slacked was in his prime and got his best results. 2017, 2018 kind of years around about that point. Slacked was a great player. He achieved an awful lot, and he teamed with great players as well, such as Octane, during that period. And I know that Nero said that he wasn't really watching around this time, but, you know, if you're not going to really be watching a guy's career, then maybe, you know, it could be wise not to comment on it so much. But anyway, this is Slack's COD Gamepedia here, just to look through some of the results that he had. Certainly getting into Advanced Warfare, started to get better results on the Elevate team. Of course, then he joined Rise in the Black Ops 3 season with Classic, Octane, and Looney. Won South Carolina that year, made it to a couple of grand finals, but also finishing top 3 multiple occasions. Infinite Warfare comes around on the LG team, wins Anaheim 2017, then World War II, wins Birmingham, the first event that I ever attended, wins the Northern Arena Showdown as well. You know, look, lots of Sundays, lots of appearances here. Black Ops 3 won Fort Worth on that LG team as well. And then into MW19, okay, of course, didn't have the greatest season on Surge, played the start of the Cold War season, then called it a day. But, you know, his tenure in the sport is pretty impressive compared to many other players. And as Slack then goes on to say, F-tier players talking like they've got chips. The CDL in 2025 has people talking crazy. And Octane was the first to @Nero Poison here in the replies, as we saw Nero gave his response. Even Apathy, it's tough to get Apathy to give you a response here. And he didn't roast Apathy that hard, really, but he did say that he was getting Kentucky Fried at the end of his career, which, you know, Apathy wasn't as strong at the end of his career, but I still don't think he was getting Kentucky Fried. And Apathy says, I've got more rings than you have finals appearances. I think he's got the same amount of rings as Nero has Sunday appearances, to be honest. So it was all rather funny. JCat was in the replies and saying, disrespecting Slacked and while gassing up Blast when your own COD Gamepedia page looks like this is just insanity. And here you are, yeah, so he came 4th at Major 3 2023 and 3rd at Major 2 2022. Those are the 2 Sunday appearances, but But of course, not much compared to Slack's career and of course aBeZy's career, in which he became a 2-time Call of Duty World Champion. So all very entertaining, but let's talk about some of the roster drama of the day. So, Ronnie comes out this afternoon. This is the new Gentlemates roster they are looking at. Envoy, Ghosty, Neptune and Simp. Now, the last few days there's been some interesting developments here. Envoy and Ghosty seems pretty likely after what's been happening at Thieves. We thought that it was going to be Neptune and Nastie potentially coming over from the Surge team, but now it looks like they're taking this direction instead. And this is actually quite the scalp to get. Now, we'll talk about what happens to Nastie in a second, if he's getting screwed over here, where he's going to go next. But I'm not going to lie, of all the players that are currently available, I think Gentlemates, if they do form this roster, have done a killer job. We know that they've got some money to spend. They're also looking, well, continuing, I think, to put up a facility in Texas to support the players, which is where a number of these guys want to play. But just on paper, if the FaZe team is Simp, Drazah, 04 and Abuzah, which team do you prefer? I think there is a debate to be had on whether Gentlemates, given the fact that in, what you might call the super team era, when Thieves are trying to form a new super team to take down the OpTic super team and FaZe are potentially looking to try and do a similar thing, Gentlemates might have killed it with this pickup and maybe taken advantage of the fact that Neptune could have been signed and could have been approached by some other teams rather sooner. So this is the article that Ronnie puts together, that they are looking to finish off their roster with Simp and Ghosty. Their key acquisition is Envoy. That's the headline signing, who joins after his release from Thieves. They're going to buy Ghosty out of his contract, which is maybe going to give Thieves the money to go and buy aBeZy out of his FaZe contract. That's the recent rumour. And Envoy and Ghosty had lots of success together this season on Thieves. And yeah, they were paired with Scrap and HyDra, the deadliest duo, at least at the time, in the game. You might argue now, looking at OpTic, whether they have a deadlier duo. But still, Scrap and HyDra is the gold standard in terms of AR SMG combo as it stands, in my opinion. And Envoy and Ghosty had an awful lot of success with them, but also they were very much playing the objective roles on that team last season. They were, I think, number 1 and number 2 in our BP objective rankings of the year. If they weren't 1-2, they were certainly 1-3, and Ghosty got the win in that award the other day, as we saw. So, just thinking about it from the outside looking in, Envoy and Ghosty last year were paired with Scrap and HyDra. You replace HyDra with Neptune. It's not quite the same, sure, but still of the options. Like, if you're going to tell me that you've got no HyDra anymore and you can't get Shotzzy or Simp or whoever, Neptune's probably who you get, and apparently that's who they've got. And then if you've got no Scrap in terms of slaying AR, Sib is kind of Scrap, but just not quite as good. I mean, we talked about it last year with Toronto when they were looking to replace Scrap, that Sib is kind of, it's as like for like as you can try and find in terms of talent. And yeah, is it going to be Thieves? No. But Thieves last year, with that roster, they topped the CDL standings. Yeah, they didn't do so well at the end of the season, but it was an incredibly great team. And with Envoy, Ghosty, but with Neptune and Sib as your additional men, okay, it's not quite the Thieves super team, but it's a damn good attempt, I think, to try and replicate it in some regard. So for Gentlemates, apparently, they have signed preliminary agreements so that any teams trying to poach those players, if they want to do so, they're going to have to spend a lot of money. It's going to come at a steep cost. So it seems that the players are happy with this. They're drafting the final contracts to get everything signed, sealed and delivered, but this is reportedly going to be the new Gentlemates team. So Sib is a free agent from Cloud9 coming in here. Of course, there will be questions on the culture of the team and who they're going to get as a coach. As I've said a couple of times, Rambo Ray to me makes a lot of sense. He worked with Neptune before, speaks French, right? So there's that whole connection which could be valuable as well. But if you're Gentlemates, if you're a Gentlemates fan, I think you've got to be happy with this outcome, right? In this article that Ronnie did, I mean, it was blowing up, right? Like within a couple of minutes of it coming out, it had 1,000, well, at least several hundred likes, and it's now got nearly 2,000. We'll talk about Falcons here in a second, but, there's plenty of people in the replies here, if you look further down anyway, from the basic Gentlemates fans, right, who are pretty damn excited about this development. So what do you guys think about this team on paper? But also, is Sib for Nastie? Because that's what we thought it was going to be here with Nastie, but it looks like Sib has either chosen, and presumably he's chosen this over Falcons, because it looks like Falcons wanted him, right? It makes sense. They wanted him before, teaming with Pred. It's like, it makes a lot of sense, but it looks like Sib has chosen this, unless, like, I don't know, Falcons went a different way and they want to pick up Insight, or which doesn't make sense to me with Cellium, or Nastie maybe instead of Sib, and therefore this is his option. feels less likely to me. Feels to me that Gentamates have offered Sib a good bag, maybe not a Falcons bag, but a good bag. Maybe on Falcons, there's some risk that next year they go and get scrap and therefore you get replaced, which is a risk. On Gentamates, maybe Sib can build a tenure there. Yeah, there might be questions on cultural fit and how Sib and Ghosty are going to work as an AR duo and stuff like this. And I think those are valid questions. But in terms of trying to build the best team you could given the options, I think Gentamates have done a pretty damn solid job. Now, Nastie says people are making the same decisions, expecting different results. So as I say, what does that mean for a team like the Falcons? Now, this is what Vinny Gage says, and he'll probably delete this in due course. You know how it is. Whether this is actually going to be the team, who knows? I'll take this with a massive pinch of salt. But it puts Falcons in a really interesting position because we think we're trying to get Sib or somebody like that. What are they going to do? Sign Insight? Like Insight and Cell? Surely that's not going to work. So maybe the plan after all is Exnid to the flex and then Kiz comes in. Now, to be fair, if I've got to find a partner for Pred, Kiz is up there. Kiz is certainly up there of, you know, the options that they maybe wanted, some of the guys they tried to get if they were looking at aBeZy, that's not happened. Kiz, I think, would be an excellent addition to this team and actually makes a lot of sense. And I don't hate this totally in terms of a roster, but it's not what they were trying for, that's for sure. And given what we thought Falcons were going to do, if this ends up being their team, I think they'll be pretty, disappointed, and maybe even Cellium will be kind of disappointed that he signed the contract for a massive bag and that he's not going to play with, a real top-tier AR counterpart. And maybe that's okay, but maybe it's not. It also raises questions on Nastie, as I say, like, is Nastie getting screwed over here? Where's he going to go? What about Toronto now? Because we thought Toronto were looking at Insight. Now they're not anymore, we think. So is Nastie going to go to Toronto? Are they going to bring Insight back? Who's going to end up on Falcons? What does that look like? Is Nastie going to go anywhere? Is he getting screwed over? Would the team be better with Nastie, with that chemistry, than they would be with Sib? Because Sib's talented, but I think Nastie's also right up there as well. So I'm very much intrigued to your thoughts, as always, and all of this stuff in the comment section below. We shall discuss in more detail tomorrow. Hit the like button, take care, and I'll see you next time.